Our next guest is without a doubt one of my favorite, absolutely favorite, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to say that. One of the finest repair shops in all of our state, quite possibly in all of our country. And we're just privileged to have their quality of service in our community. We mentioned in the beginning of the show that one of our guests was going to offer some specials, and we're really excited about that. So make sure you have that pen and piece of paper ready for it. It's Jeff Pheasant is with us here today from A Master Mechanic, and just an honor to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mitch. Good morning, listeners.
What I wanted to start with was we were talking about the different specials that you were going to offer, but before we get into them, and this is going to be one of them that you're going to offer, air conditioning systems this time of the year. I think a lot of people get into them, they go, wow, it's cool. It feels comfortable. It definitely it seems like it takes a little longer to get cool than maybe it did when the car was new, but they consider that maybe age on a vehicle, and that really may not be true. So I want to get into the air conditioning systems today in depth. And this time of the year, as it just got hotter, I don't think we can have this conversation often enough. The different parts of an air conditioning system that are misunderstood by so many of our listeners as well, if you will.
Well, I think one of the big things that people don't realize is when their air conditioner is not serviced correctly, it's cycling way too quick and way too often, which in turn creates a lot of heat and takes the system out. Another thing is people don't realize that when the Freon starts to get low on your air conditioning with the newer type of Freon that we're seeing today, it actually will make the air conditioner get a little bit colder than it would if it was serviced correctly, and it will drop just a few degrees, which is not good.
And so that can actually adversely impact the components as well.
Yes, it can. And I would rather see my customers come in and get their air conditioner performance evaluation done to make sure that they're okay, rather than waiting until they came in and they've done $1,400 worth of damage to the system, because I just would like to see him be able to spend maybe $100 and get it serviced rather than $1,400 to replace a bunch of components.
Well, and that's never a good thing for any of us. And I think, you said something to me once about that you would rather see them doing the services than have these catastrophic repairs. And it's so refreshing to hear that, because in a lot of businesses, those are, they look for those big money tickets, but you'd rather have a customer for years and all of their friends and family and have them enjoy their car than to have one big repair and be done with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's just a big part of your integrity as a core fundamental value of your business that we endorse and support and want our community to get used to. Let's talk about the different parts of the air conditioning system, because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand what the components are and what they each do.
Well, the big component is the AC compressor, and a lot of people don't realize that when they get out of their car and they go into the grocery store or park in their driveway and they leave the air conditioner turned on, that is actually doing damage as well. That feeds electricity back through the electrical system, the computer, and a lot of other components in the car. That AC compressor actually has an electromagnet clutch, and when you do not turn that off before you turn the car off, that's feeding electricity back through. Then when you get into the car, you start the car back up, you have the draw that creates on your starter, your battery, your alternator, all of your electrical system, and that in turn is doing serious damage. A lot of the newer cars have a relay built into them to allow for 10 to 15 seconds before that will allow it to kick in, just for that reason.
Wow, and I can bet right now there are a lot of people going, what? I never shut my air off before I turn my key off. I'm doing damage to my system, and nobody took the time to ever tell me that. And you had shared with me that this is part of why you've taken on being on our show.
I would rather educate my customers in the maintenance of their vehicle and have them save money in the long run by taking care of the maintenance rather than having a big, huge expense all at once.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now that there are probably thousands of people in our community right now that just gulped when they heard that they're potentially damaging these electronics in their systems and their starters and alternators simply by not turning their air conditioning system off before they turn the key off in the car. And likewise, starting the car before turning it back on and giving a few seconds for all that power to disperse before they turn it back on. And it's absolutely correct. How about the evaporators and condensers? What are they and what do they do?
Well, there's another one that we see quite often is a lot of times people don't realize that they've gotten a lot of bugs, dust, dirt, rocks. Maybe they had a little bit of a leak somewhere in a cooler and they have gotten oil and bugs and so forth in the condenser, which is always located right in front of the radiator. That in turn is creating a lot of heat in the system, which takes the compressor out and other components in the system. By keeping that clean, it's out of sight, out of mind. But if you're to look through the grill of your car and look in there and take a look and see, do I have a lot of bugs in there? Do I have some oil in there? Maybe get in there and clean that out. You will be amazed at the difference. That may drop your temperature by 20 degrees right there.
Wow. And so then, there's a lot of technology in the air conditioning systems electronically these days, and some of the computer-controlled dual climate systems, and having somebody knowledgeable to work on those is important as well.
Absolutely. You've got your front and rear air. A lot of the newer cars nowadays have so many different components that are so susceptible to failure just by not servicing that correctly.
So I promised our listeners that have their pen and the piece of paper ready that you were going to offer some specials, and this is just one of them. So let's tell them what you're offering for the people right now that are going, okay, I haven't had my air conditioning looked at in years or this year at all yet. What are you going to do for those listeners?
I would like to offer to anybody that's listening to the show to stop by the shop at absolutely no charge whatsoever. I will do a free performance evaluation on your system. If it does indeed need to be serviced, I am going to offer $25 off of that service.
Well, I've just got to thank you for that, because this is not this show is about education, information, and knowledge, and giving people the power to make decisions. It's not a commercial advertisement, but you just said to me earlier that you wanted to do something above and beyond for our listeners, and I have to thank you for that. I mean, to do something special for our listeners is extraordinary. And all they have to do is mention that they heard about that on the radio show, or say the CarBuyer Advisor. They'll understand where you got that. And that's going to be available. And if you happen to pick this up on our Facebook or our YouTube channel as well, and share it with your friends, just tell them the same thing. All they have to do is mention that that's where they heard that to get that special. And then the next thing that I'd like to go into is the normal routine maintenance. There's a lot of increased life expectancy oils and ratings on them, where some people are telling you can go 10, 12, 15,000 miles. Even if the oil's rated for that, that may not necessarily be the best choices based off of somebody's driving. Tell us a little bit about the oil change processes at your shop as well.
Well, it used to be that everybody said, change your oil at 3,000 miles. A lot of these newer cars, it's not that is not the case anymore. Best thing to do is open your owner's manual, look at that, and determine what the manufacturer's recommending. But also, too, you need to take into consideration your driving habits, the type of driving that you do. Am I driving around town a lot, stop and go? If that's the case, it's more of a severe conditions, idling, excessive idling. If you're on the freeway a lot and doing a lot of highway miles, you can get away with going a little longer between oil changes. But if it's a lot of stop and go and idling, why, I recommend that it probably should be more often. But some of them, such as Toyota's, saying 8 to 10,000 miles, which is fine. Some of the foreign cars are saying 10 to 12,000 miles. I have a little problem with that if you're not buying the manufacturer's recommended oil.
Well, and that's the other thing, too, is you mentioned the driving conditions. There's some people that are driving down dirt roads all the time, or they're going up into the mountains in the winter, and then they're going out to like Las Vegas where it's warmer, and those extreme temperature changes. All these things impact the real life expectancy of an oil.
Yes, they do. And then also another thing you really need to be careful of is some of these quick oil change, speedy oil change places that people frequent sometimes, they are using a very generic fluid for all their fluids. And all too often I have customers that come in that have developed some type of a skidding problem when they turn, or a shutter or something, and come to find out it didn't have the correct fluid put in the differential or the transfer case, and it has done damage to the clutches in there. That's something that people need to be aware of.
Well, and that's one of the things they get when they go to a shop like yours is they get the quality products, the right lubricants, and an inspection process around that. Instead of just we're changing your oil, we're using the cheapest possible filter, which may not be the best for your engine, the cheapest possible fluids we can to make the maximum profit, get you in and out in 5 or 10 minutes. And that we really don't endorse that type of service. You're talking about your automobile. There are thousands and thousands of dollars worth of parts on them. And for a fraction more, you can have a reputable quality shop, really use the proper lubricants, fluids, and filters. And that's part of your commitment. But you also said that you were going to do something for our listeners that maybe are ready to have a service that also are looking for a good price on that.
Yes, absolutely. We do use vehicle-specific fluids. Also, too, by the way, there is no such thing as a good, better, and best brake job and 3 different prices. When you do brakes on your vehicle, it is vehicle-specific to the compound and the material that needs to be used for the brake pads. Unfortunately, there is several manufacturers out there that manufacture brake pads with different types of compounds. How often do you pull up to a stop sign and hear your brakes squeak or the car next to you's brakes squeak? Well, a lot of that is due to the fact that you never had the correct brakes put on the car, or the rotors were not surfaced correctly, or the calipers were not serviced correctly or cleaned correctly. We see it all too often.
Well, and you're right. And this may be one of the top 10 reasons why our show exists, because consumers look at one thing when they're shopping on the internet or picking up a newspaper, is they're seeing who's got the lowest price on that, but they're not always educated on what their sacrifices are when they make those choices. And we have had this conversation before, a few dollars more, and then we're not talking 300% more in cost. We're talking small percentages of difference in price.
Sure.
And the life expectancy of that repair usually equals, if doesn't exceed, the difference in cost if you broke it down by mile.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of times we see somebody that puts some cheap brake pads on and they're back in and before 10,000 miles to have them replaced again.
And what other special did you have on for our listeners?
We have something real special. We just recently put in a real state-of-the-art alignment system. We are currently almost finished putting it all together. It should be finished on Monday, and we have put that in our new building in the front. I would like to offer to anybody that is listening to come by. I will do a free evaluation and printout of your car, your specific car, on the alignment machine. If it does turn out that it does need aligning, I would be willing to offer $25 off of that service as well.
That's fantastic. And by the way, the date that's open, which is in the next couple of days, my car is the first one on that rack.
Absolutely.
And then is there anything for the oil changes?
Oil changes, there's not a lot of money to be made in oil change. We pretty much break even in that. But if you had any other services with that, I will give $25 off of that as well.
All right, perfect. That's Jeff Pheasant with A Master Mechanic on Glendale and Sparks. And again, how do they get a hold of you and where are you located?
We are located at 2255 Glendale, which is behind the Grand Sierra Resort. We're 5 businesses east of Galletti Way. The phone number, 358-6777, or visit us at amastermechanic.com.
Don't forget to mention you heard them on the CarBuyer Advisor. You can find them on our website, thecarbuyeradvisor.com, on our preferred business page.